So hopefully you've located our video here, and let's talk a little bit about our next assignment. We're going to continue our theme of playing around with the ideas of superheroes. I like it. I find it's engaging and fun. Maybe you don't like it, but we're trying something a little different. So, what we're going to do for our next essay, let's talk about due dates. Now, we're going to, like last time, we're going to have basically about 3 weeks to work on this. So, Monday through Friday that week, what'll be week 7 for us, October 12th through the 16th. That's when we're going to be doing the peer review again. We'll be doing it on Blackboard. We'll do a rough draft on Friday, October 16th is when you'll turn in the rough draft to me. I will give you feedback. I'm currently working on your essay ones right now. Final draft will be the following Friday on the 23rd. Now, like I said, continuing this idea here, you're going to analyze a text, and specifically you're going to analyze a comic book. And so you're going to be some components that go into this. You'll see here an introduction with a thesis statement, a summary of the comic book, which will basically be really 3 paragraphs, along with an analysis, also 3 paragraphs, an evaluation, 1 paragraph, and a conclusion. Now let's talk a little bit about this summary analysis element. Now this is an analysis essay. Why are we engaged in a summary first? Well, we need a summary because you need to explain to the reader what it is this comic book is about so that we can understand your analysis. So imagine the summary here is all about you telling me the who, what, when, where of the story. What's transpiring, what's going down. I've seen people approach this very differently. Some people just like to write 3 paragraphs summarizing the basic events of the story. Sometimes people like to lead with a paragraph sort of setting up the who and the when and the where, and then they use the other 2 paragraphs to tell the what. Only thing you're required to do is you're going to be asked to give me 3 paragraphs, and since you will be summarizing, which is a form of citation, you do need to provide at the end of each of those paragraphs an in-text citation, which will be the author and artist of your comic book's last names. That's just simply to indicate that there's a summarization, and then anything that you specifically summarize or quote or paraphrase inside the summary should also be cited as well. That should obviously probably include a page number. Now, once you have done this, you're going to match with an equal number of analysis paragraphs. And in this purpose, you're going to sort of be taking on the why and the how. You're going to be diving deeper. Now, there's a lot of things you can do in analysis. We'll talk some more about this. There are a lot of different elements and ways you can analyze something. But I find that to sort of keep it simple and to make it easy, I'm going to provide you 3. And so if you write a paragraph about each of them, you'll be on point. So I'm going to ask you to look at what do you feel is the comic book's purpose. That means looking at the comic book based on what you've read. What do you feel is the author's intentions? Audience, based on the comic book, the characters, all those kind of things. Who do you feel is most likely the potential audience? And then is there a message? Message, is there one? Is there not one? Why? That was obviously something that should be aimed at the audience. Now, all these things we'll talk about more in detail, but that's what you're going to basically do, and you're going to cite some information from the comic book to back up your position. Now, we're going to talk more about the thesis statement in a separate video, so I'm going to move past it for now. But your paper will basically have an introduction that will end with a thesis statement. It will be 1 paragraph this time. Your 3 paragraphs of summary, 3 paragraphs of analysis. We'll have an evaluation. We'll talk more about that later too. And a conclusion. Now, our key elements, of course, is we need to have that concise summary so that we know what we're talking about or what we're analyzing. Your analysis and your evaluation, which is going to be a judgment call. You're going to evaluate the comic book based on some criteria that you kind of will set up in your thesis statement. And we'll talk more about this. But for the moment, when you get to the evaluation, there may be a point where you want to reevaluate your thesis. But the idea being is, in your thesis statement, you should set up a reason for why you're analyzing this comic book, and then your evaluation should be roughly centered around that same question, and you're going to kind of return to it and sort of reflect on it. Okay? Now, I'm going to come down here. Like I said, I have PowerPoint. I do have a template for you guys that you can pull up right here. And the template is important because I have the subheadings. All you need to do with the templates is start filling things in. And you'll see here, I've got in the highlighted stuff some guidance for you guys for every one of the sections. And of course, you'll have a works cited page at the end. And I've even provided you with a basic template for that as well. Okay. If there are questions or things about this kind of stuff, this is what we're going to have our first discussion forum centered around. All right. The other thing I have here is I do have an example. This is not a perfect example, but you can sort of see what a previous student had done work for me. They have a pretty okay thesis. I think it gets a little bogged down and a little heavy, and you'll see that later on we'll talk about the relationship of this to their evaluation. Here's their summary. Here is where they're citing specifically, and here is where they're citing at the end, and they're using the author and artist's last name. They're doing that at the end of all their summary paragraphs, exactly like I wanted them to. Their analysis, of course, needed a little work, like they were missing a citation and they needed to integrate some stuff. You can see I made some notes there. All right, evaluation, conclusion. And then there's their works cited. The one thing I would say here is they did not italicize their comic book, is a misstep there. But, like I said, these are little errors. Okay. A checklist. Now, here's the thing. If you have access to a comic book, that's fine. Use a comic book. Keep in mind that a normal comic book is somewhere in the range of no more than 20 to 28 pages. Don't end up reading a graphic novel, please. Graphic novels go way more, like 30, 40, 50, 60. If for some reason you don't have access to comic books, I have provided some PDF versions right here. So you can actually pull these up and read them if you want to choose one of these. One of the things I'd like you to share with me in the FAQ forum this week, because you need to do it anyway, is what comic book you're going to do. Okay? That would be something I'd love for you to share with me. And you can ignore these steps here for the writing center. That's for my other students. I'll be removing that because we don't actually have direct access to the same writing center. But as I said here, I've got some examples you can use. Any of these are up for grabs, but if you want to use one independently, that's fine as well. But ultimately, this is going to lead us over to our first discussion forum, like we did last time, where you should ask me some questions and pull up some things that you feel like might be some challenges, so we can interact and talk about those things. Please feel free to share with me which comic book you're using. If you're using one here or you're using a different one, let me know, so that if I can help you out in any way or make sure you're not taking on something that might be too big for you, let me know in that forum.